When you talk about archetypes of weapons that have really shaken Bungie's sandbox, I would definitely put rocket-assisted pulse rifles up there at the top of the list. Mint Retrograde, when it was brought to us in Edge of Fate, became the most dominant weapon, essentially being present in everyone's loadout. Now, in Renegades, a lot of us are probably using the Praxic Blade, and for good reason. It's a very good sword. The artifact mods are boosting that even further. But the problem is that takes up that top slot, therefore eliminating the ability to use Mint Retrograde. However, there's another rocket-assisted pulse rifle that just launched with Renegades, that being the Psi Aeterna IV. Fellas, in a perfect world, you can still rock your Praxic Blade, but you can also rock Psi Aeterna. And considering just how good the ammo economy is for Praxic, you're not going to be hurting that much despite the nerfs that were handed out to rocket-assisted pulse rifles at the beginning of Renegades. Yes, Bungie did pull back the base reserve ammo from 18 to 14. They also reduced the ammo gained per enhanced special ammo brick from 6 to 5. But the big thing is that they didn't touch the damage. The damage is still the same. Today, guys, we're going to be diving into one of my favorite weapons in Renegades. We're going to be talking about its different traits, how it compares, what its synergies are, and then concluding what is the god roll on Psi Aeterna. Let's begin. Let's start by breaking down the traits. In columns 3, we have Blast Distributor, Eddy Current, Beacon Rounds, Stats for All, Reverberation, and Trickle Charge. In our 4th column, we have Collective Pugilism, Elemental Honing, Jolting Feedback, One for All, Rolling Storm, and Adrenaline Junkie. Now, right off the bat, guys, inside of columns 3, the most interesting perk is Trickle Charge, at least on the surface. It's the closest thing we have, though, here to rewind rounds, which is essentially what made Mint Retrograde so good. The perk reads that receiving or discharging Bolt Charge partially loads the magazine from reserves. Now, how this works is that each stack of Bolt Charge that you receive is going to refill 10% of the mag from your reserves. And then when you discharge a Bolt Charge, it's supposed to refill around 20% of the magazine. Now, let me just say this perk worked kind of weird, and I actually have some conflicting results during our testing. But the TLDR of this, though, is that yes, it will refill ammo to Psi Aeterna's magazine from reserves. But to be more specific, though, with a base magazine size of 5, each stack of Bolt Charge we received is refilling 2 shots back into the magazine from reserves. However, when we discharge Bolt Charge, for whatever reason, this only refills 1 shot back into the mag. Now, I also tried this with like extended mag, which gives us 6 shots in the magazine as well, on top of Spark of Frequency, which gives us more Bolt Charge stacks when amplified. And yes, this would refill 4 shots back into the magazine from reserves. However, same issue. When I would discharge a Bolt Charge, I would get a lower number refilled back into my magazine, this time being 2 shots refilled. Now, I also want to mention that I tried frequency on our base magazine size, so not extended mag, but there didn't seem to be any change. It was only with the extended mag that I was able to get that increase. Now, I also want to mention how this perk works paired with something like Rolling Storm. Again, Rolling Storm reads that Final Blows grant Bolt Charge, and while amplified, Final Blows grant additional Bolt Charge. Now, this perk is a really easy way to get stacks of Bolt Charge, as essentially each kill grants 1 stack or 2 stacks if you're amplified. But really, it's that first kill, though, that really gets things going. That first kill will grant you 3 stacks of Bolt Charge or 4 stacks when amplified, which means if you're using Trickle Charge, this refills 5 shots back into the magazine from reserves. On top of that, each additional kill after that seemed to be refilling around 3 shots into the magazine, regardless if we were amplified or not. Additionally, though, when you have the prompt Bolt Charge ready and you get additional kills, this will refill 5 shots back into the magazine, even though you aren't technically getting any more stacks of Bolt Charge. And this is something you need Rolling Storm for, because we tried it without and it didn't work. Now, I know ammo is still kind of low on these rocket pulse rifles, but if you have a way to kind of feed yourself back special ammo, there is excellent synergy to be had here between Trickle Charge and Rolling Storm. Keep in mind, guys, we have artifact mods like Dielectric, which greatly incentivizes us to use anything that involves Bolt Charge. Now, there are 2 bugs, though, that we noticed with Trickle Charge. Specifically, when I was using Trickle Charge and Rolling Storm, I came across a bug sometimes where getting a kill would give a stack of Bolt Charge. It would then refill our magazine by 3, but then out of just nowhere, one of our shots would disappear. We also had another bug with just Trickle Charge where the first stack of Bolt Charge that we would receive just wouldn't refill any ammo at all. So is this still a great perk and a great perk combination? Yes, but as all things here inside of Destiny, a bit buggy. Now, let me just say, Trickle Charge is the perk I care about the most inside of columns 3. I think it's outright the best pick. However, there are some other good options, things like Stats for All, eddy current, both of which increase their reload speed. Some folks like reverberation as well, as a kill will max out your blast radius to 100, which does make it a bit easier to score more kills. There's also a play to be made for blast distributor, as dealing splash damage grants a bonus to the grenade stat. And with the enhanced version, each stack gives you plus 13 to your grenade stack, up to a max of plus 65 at 5 stacks, which let me say is really easy to pull off with this weapon, as each trigger pull is firing a burst of 3 shots. Therefore, you're given 3 stacks of this perk. So actually a pretty easy way to top off your grenade stats for anyone combining Psi Aeterna with the grenade-based build. But this takes us to columns 4. Let's talk about the big one that everyone's been looking at, Jolting Feedback. The perk reads that dealing repeated damage with this weapon inflicts jolt. While amplified, jolt is applied faster. Now for this pulse rifle, it takes roughly 3 shots to start applying jolts, or when amplified, just 2 shots. And let me just be more specific here, shots as in trigger pulls. So 3 bursts to apply the jolt, 2 bursts to apply it when amplified. Now these rocket pulses already chunk, and this is going to tack on some extra jolt damage in the process. Another useful benefit here though, is that of course jolt there can stun overload champions, which is quite nice. So definitely a solid pick. Now in terms of damage perks, just like Mint, Psi also has access to elemental honing, which is one of the best damage perks in the game. It reads that dealing unique elemental damage grants this weapon a stacking damage bonus. This bonus is increased for kinetic weapons. Now each unique elemental damage that you deal is going to grant a stack of this buff up to a max of 5 stacks for a 35% increase in damage, which lasts for 23 seconds with the enhanced perk. You also have one for all. It's not as good as an outright DPS perk, but pretty easy to proc, as hitting 3 separate targets increases damage for a moderate duration, that being a 35% increase for 11 seconds with the enhanced version of this perk. Now this takes us to the origin traits on Psi. We've got Wildcard, as well as Vanguard Determination, and the big one, Accelerated Assault. Again, Accelerated Assault drops on the shiny variants of these weapons. And you'll know it's shiny, guys, because as you're playing the game, if you notice one of the drops that you get after an activity drops fully masterworked, then boom, it's a good chance that one has Accelerated Assault. But let's start with Wildcard. Final blows of this weapon have a chance to create experimental submunitions at the target's location. Now this origin trait essentially drops varying amounts of Telesto bolts on the ground depending on the type of enemy that you kill. So for miners, it's 1, elites and players, it's 3, and for bosses and mini bosses, it's 7. It's one of my favorite origin traits though, guys. Tacks on some extra ad clear, and yes, it even synergizes with certain traits. The other base origin trait though is Vanguard Determination. After using your class ability, final blows of this weapon grant you bonus damage resistance. Now for this trait, after you score a weapon kill within 20 seconds of using your class ability, this will grant you a stack for 12.5 seconds, at least with the enhanced version of this origin trait, up to a max of 3 stacks. Now, each stack of Vanguard Determination grants you 2% damage resist. So at max, you'll be sitting at 6%. But this takes us to the shiny origin traits. Accelerated Assault. Dealing sustained damage with this weapon loads a small amount of ammo from reserves or removes heat and slightly increases damage. Now, I love this origin trait. On paper, it's very good, but also in reality, on most other weapons, Accelerated Assault is a top tier origin trait. As landing 3 shots, you're able to reload 10% of the mag from reserves, and it also grants you a 6% increase in damage with the enhanced version of this origin trait, which has a 4-second timer that can be refreshed. But still, right now, in 2026, I know the expansion's only been out for a month, but still, Accelerated Assault is bugged on this weapon. And really, I think it's burst fire weapons just in general. Now, you're still getting the increased damage, and in fact, our DPS of just shooting Carl's body is higher with Accelerated Assault. However, our total damage was lower as the origin trait just ate up 2 of our shots out of thin air. You heard that right? It just ate it. Now again, if you have a way to keep up special ammo, then all the power to you, but at base, the weapon has 14 shots. So losing ammo is not exactly optimal. I still think it's a good origin trait, but yes, Bungie has got to fix some of these bugs. And as we talked about with Trickle Charge and Rolling Storm and now Accelerated Assault, there seems to be an issue with burst fire weapons and Accelerated Assault on top of just innate issues with the weapon itself. Does this take away from Psi Aeterna being a monster? No, still a great weapon, which takes us to the gun roll for the weapon. I view Psi as more of a major buster, a champion dealer, if you will, that can be useful in all activities. Sure, it does have DPS potential, similar to Mint, as it also has elemental honing, but you do have more hoops to jump through. Mint allows you to just spam shot after shot with rewind rounds and elemental honing, or even rewind rounds and bait and switch without even having to think about jumping through a single hoop. Here on side though, you really only have Trickle Charge feeding you back ammo, which at base isn't as much as rewind rounds unless you're behind a Storm's Key barricade. However, something Psi does have over Mint is that it's in the energy slots, and that means it doesn't have to compete with the Praxic blade. For myself though, I think the ideal pairing is Trickle Charge plus Jolting Feedback and Trickle Charge and Rolling Storm. And since you can get multiple traits on the tier 5 variant, hell, I would even do in that fourth column Jolting Feedback, Rolling Storm, and Elemental Honing, just to have as a swap off in case you need it. You saw how many people were rocking double rocket pulse rifles during the day 1 clears for Equilibrium. For columns 3 though, I do think that Trickle Charge is by far my favorite pick, but I don't want to overlook things like Blast Distributor. The functionality of that is still really good. It's a great way to top off your grenade stats, allowing you to allocate stats elsewhere. Outside of that, if I had to choose another trait in that third column, I don't know, maybe Eddy Current. In terms of the barrel though and the magazine perks, anything that adds stats is good. Linear Compensator increases stability, velocity, and blast radius. Quick Launch for velocity and handling. Smart Drift Control for stability, velocity, recoil direction, and handling. For the mag though, if you're doing Trickle Charge, I would definitely suggest Extended Mag. You're not going to be reloading that often. You also have a Pendant Mag though, which increases your magazine by 1, but without the reload penalty. Again though, based on our testing, it just seemed like Extended Mag just worked better with that Trickle Charge Rolling Storm combo. This also doesn't take away though the efficacy of high velocity rounds, as that increases velocity, speed, and reload, or even your typical flared or alloy magazine. Again, it's the traits in third and fourth column to me that are the most important. So guys, that is our review for Psi Aeterna. It's a great weapon. It's in an S tier archetype. It doesn't conflict with that top slot, allowing you to rock it alongside Praxic. And considering how easy it is to rock double special, considering the special ammo economy on Praxic, this is extremely doable. And then we talk about the artifact synergies here with things like Overload Pulse Rifle and especially Dielectric. Dielectric can keep you alive, guys. The mod reads that defeating arc debuff targets grants Bolt Charge, rapidly defeating arc debuff targets spawns an Orb of Power, and heals a small portion of your health, which is roughly 40 HP. All around the board though, Psi Aeterna is a fantastic weapon. It is a weapon that I think is going to be good throughout the rest of this expansion, and I think Bungie is probably pretty pleased with where the nerf is landed. They attack the ammo economy, not the weapon itself and its damage, which still makes Psi Aeterna an S tier choice. Fellas and ladies, thank you all for coming and watching, and as always,
slap that like button like your mama told you right.